Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hanne van Voorde. I'm the Head of Supervisory Practices and Operations within the IAIS Secretariat. I will be guiding you through today's session, and this also includes a number of housekeeping matters that I will share with you now. Firstly, if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please do send a message in the chat function to the host, or you can also send an email to my colleague Zoe Smoke at zoe.smoke@bis.org. If you are unable to see the slides that we are currently showing on the screen, they are also available on the IAIS website. You can find them under the webinar event page for today. Today, we are organizing this session for you. We have also organized a similar session yesterday for IAIS members. And today we're giving a broad update on the development of the strategic plan to all of you to give you a sneak preview into the development of the strategic plan. This webinar, including any questions and comments at the end of the session, will be recorded and made available on the IAIS public website. I invite you to look at our privacy notice available on the website as well, if you wish to have any more information on that. Today's session, as I mentioned before, is part of our ongoing efforts to engage with you, both members but also stakeholders, as the next strategic plan is being developed. We have allocated some time at the end of the presentation for you to share any comments you may have, ask questions, etc. You can do so by adding comments in the chat function, and please feel free to add any comments or questions already during the presentations. We will then address them at the end. You may also raise your hand in case you wish to request the floor during the Q&A session. So let me now introduce our speakers for today. We have with us the Executive Committee Chair, Shigeru Arizumi, to give you some introductory remarks. After that, we will have Jonathan Dixon, the Secretary General, with us to give you a more detailed presentation on the different elements of the draft strategic plan. So with that, I'm very pleased to hand over to our Chair, Shigeru. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Hanne, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And thank you very much all for joining today's webinar. Today, we would like to update you on our progress in developing our next five-year strategic plan. The strategic plan sets the strategic direction for the IAIS in the 2025-2029 period. It defines what we aim to achieve through our work, which topics and issues we expect to dedicate a greater degree of focus on, and our intentions to continue to evolve and improve the way in which we work, and to be even more efficient and effective. Overall, I would like to emphasize from the outset that this strategic plan will build on the strong work across the last five-year period. So it is more an evolution than a revolution, while also reflecting recent developments. In crafting this strategic plan, we have carefully reflected on what we have achieved so far, which key objectives and topics we are still delivering important work on, and how we see the insurance landscape continuing to evolve over the coming period. Underpinning this work in support of our core objectives is a commitment to continuous improvement in how the IAIS operates. We have also reflected deeply on our role as both a standard-setting body within the global financial architecture and a broad-based membership-driven association established to support members in their own efforts to strengthen insurance supervision. Taking the time to thoroughly reflect is an incredibly valuable exercise, especially for an organization such as the IAIS, with a broad global reach and diverse membership. A key element of this strategic plan is to be forward-looking, to identify risks, trends, and challenges facing the insurance sector and supervisors, and help our members respond. The strategic plan also assists us to have a clear, shared view of what we are all working in service of. Through the 5-year period, it also guides the development of our annual work plans. We have also focused on developing a plan that is concise and clear in its messaging and intent. In crafting our next strategic plan, we have benefited from a lot of useful input from our members and stakeholders, for which we are very grateful. This has included comprehensive surveys of our membership and our stakeholders in 2023, and excellent input from members and stakeholders at a number of roundtables during the annual conference in Tokyo last November. We are now close to the end of the process, but before we finalize the plan, we wanted to share its key elements with you in some detail so as to provide a final opportunity for feedback before the plan is finalized later this year. With that, I will hand over to the Secretariat, but would like to thank you once again for your input to date. I think you will agree that the following 5 years presents a challenge, but exciting time for the IAIS. Thank you very much for your kind attention. So, Hane, back to you.
Thank you very much, Shigeru, for setting the scene for today's session. Very much appreciated. I will now hand over to Jonathan to give you a more detailed presentation of the process of developing the plan and its key elements.
So thank you very much, Hannah, and hello to everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. It's fantastic to have so many of you with us for this webinar to talk about our new strategic plan. Before I take you through the core elements of the strategic plan, I did want to touch a little bit on the process. So the plan, as Shigeru said, has been developed through a rigorous process of debate and engagement starting back just over a year ago, early 2023. And as Shigeru mentioned, we've had a number of touch points with members and stakeholders throughout the process, which has really helped shape the plan. And we are now towards the end of the process, and from here we will finalize the plan and seek endorsement from the IAIS Executive Committee in June, and then the broader membership through an extraordinary general meeting in the third quarter. And then the strategic plan will come into effect at the beginning of 2025. So this is, as Shigeru mentioned, a good last opportunity to provide some of the more detailed feedback. Just to provide some context, the 2025-2029 period follows an intensive standard setting period for the IAIS. In 2019, the IAIS adopted a revised set of insurance core principles, or ICPs, applicable to the supervision of all insurers, as well as COMFRAME, which stands for the Common Framework for the Supervision of Internationally Active Insurance Groups. And as you know, what we've been busy with particularly recently is the development of the quantitative element of COMFRAME, which is the Insurance Capital Standard, or ICS. And the ICS is a consolidated group-wide capital standard for IAIGs, which is scheduled for adoption as a prescribed capital requirement for IAIGs at the end of this year. And then lastly, in terms of milestones, of course, in December 2019, the IAIS also adopted the holistic framework for the assessment and mitigation of systemic risk in the insurance sector. And this holistic framework was subsequently endorsed by the Financial Stability Board, the FSB. So going forward, it's about building on these milestone achievements. I think it's fair to say that we will probably enter a period of more along the lines of ongoing maintenance and refinement of our standards. So calming down a little bit on the standard setting side. And the focus of the IAIS will now shift to, firstly, a greater emphasis on supporting comprehensive and consistent implementation of these global standards. And secondly, really around continued vigilance in assessing key trends and risks impacting the global insurance sector. The strategic plan has also been developed cognizant of the emerging and possible future trends expected to shape the insurance landscape for the next 5 years, such as climate change, such as rapid digital innovation. And as the global standard setting body for insurance supervision, with over 200 member jurisdictions, the IAIS is uniquely placed to support its membership in tackling these emerging trends and challenges. These are global challenges that demand a global response. Now, just giving a bit of an overview, this gives the strategic plan in a nutshell. And there are a number of interconnected elements, all equally important in our efforts to achieve our mission. You will see, and also to give some context, that importantly, the IAIS remains committed pursuing work that serves all the supervisory mandates of our members, spanning financial stability, so macroprudential supervision, financial soundness issues, so microprudential supervision, and market conduct and consumer protection, as well as objectives related to market development and financial inclusion. Then moving to the core objectives, what we will do is we will seek to perform our role to achieve our mission through what we see as a mutually reinforcing cycle of activities, which can be characterized by 4 core objectives, which I will cover each in turn. And then I will also touch on the other key pillars of our work, namely our cross-cutting strategic themes and our operational priorities. So turning first to core objectives, the core objectives are outlined on the slide. I'll go through them one by one, but as we go through the core objectives, what I will do is provide some context on what has been achieved in our current 2020 to 2024 strategic plan period, and then outline our plans for the coming 5-year period. So turning to the first core objective, which is our work on monitoring and responding to key risks and trends in the global insurance sector. Now, this is an area where we have made significant progress in recent years, particularly with our framework for this assessment and monitoring, our global monitoring exercise, our annual GME, which is a key pillar of the holistic framework. And as you know, in December 2022, the FSB endorsed the holistic framework as a more effective basis for assessing and mitigating systemic risk in the insurance sector, and agreed to discontinue the annual identification of globally systemically important insurers, or GSIs. Turning to the coming period, we will continue to refine the GME, including a structured approach to identifying data gaps that need to be addressed in supporting the effectiveness of the GME. We will also pursue greater regional outreach with members and stakeholders to share GME outcomes and support greater participation in the GME. And it's through the GME that we will assess and inform members on key risks and trends posed by the insurance sector and by individual insurers that could present risks to the stability of the broader financial system, or vice versa, risks and trends in the global economy or global financial system that could present risks to the insurance sector. And in this endeavor, we will work very closely with other standard setting bodies and with the FSB. So moving to our standard setting objectives, the primary focus for the IAIS standing setting agenda over the past 5 years has obviously been our development of the ICS. And this ICS project has also included an assessment of whether the aggregation method being developed by the US provides comparable outcomes to the ICS. Our other standard setting work has evolved to be a more targeted approach of refining standards in response to emerging trends and in responses to feedback from implementation assessment activities, as you've seen with our work on climate risk and the refinement of our holistic framework supervisory material. Now, in the coming period, we will continue with this ongoing maintenance of our global standards, while at the same time being vigilant in making necessary refinements in response to major trends and risks, certain recalibrations. So, for instance, there may be further work on elements of the ICS or feedback from implementation assessment activities. And also with the adoption of ICS from 2025 onwards, the focus of the IAIS will naturally shift from ICS development to ICS implementation. Moving on, over the past 5 years, the IAIS has also been active in supporting the sharing of good supervisory practices and promoting the understanding of supervisory issues, focusing on emerging and accelerating risks, challenges, and opportunities facing the insurance sector. Now, going forward, this is an area where we will continue to support our members in responding to key trends and risks. And this area of work will not only cover emerging trends, including climate change, cyber threats, DE&I, digital innovation, insurance protection gaps, but also those issues connected to the more perpetual areas of supervisory attention, like solvency, governance, operational resilience, recovery and resolution, market conduct, and financial inclusion issues. We'll also build on existing partnerships with implementation partners, but also look for closer cooperation with other organizations on a range of common interests. And I would point out that the IAIS remains committed to helping its members from emerging market and developing economy, EMDE, jurisdictions to keep pace with their insurance markets growth. And through cooperation with implementation partners and regional associations of supervisors, we aim to extend our geographical reach and bolster our capacity building efforts. And then lastly, in terms of the core objective areas, we have invested heavily in implementation assessment activities. So in recent years, we commenced intensive assessments of implementation of the holistic framework supervisory material through our targeted jurisdictional assessments of implementation in major insurance markets. But we also advanced our program of other implementation assessment tools designed to help our members' own efforts to identify gaps in their observance of standards. In the coming period, we will continue to strengthen our implementation assessment framework, building on the lessons that we've learned from this past 5-year period, and continue to apply a range of tools from intensive implementation assessments that we undertake to also building the capacity of our own members to address their implementation gaps. And implementation assessments of our major reforms and global standards will continue or commence in the 2025 to 2029 period. In particular, we will engage with ongoing progress monitoring of the implementation of the holistic framework supervisory material, which will feed into our annual reporting to the FSB on the supervisory response to identified financial stability risks. Implementation assessment of the qualitative elements of ComFrame will commence next year. And following the planned adoption of ICS at the end of this year, the IAS will move into the phase of preparing for the assessment of implementation of ICS across jurisdictions, and then, of course, ultimately start undertaking the actual assessments in the period ahead. So moving on to the strategic themes, which are cross-cutting across our core objectives. For the coming 5-year period, we have identified 3 broad cross-cutting strategic themes for our work program that we believe have the potential to significantly impact or even reshape the insurance sector, and which warrant heightened attention and action by the global supervisory community. And these strategic themes, as you see on the screen, are firstly, strengthening our supervisory response to climate change. Secondly, adapting to digital innovation and cyber risks. And thirdly, supporting insurance to serve its societal purpose of building resilience. And these topics all have the potential to impact our mission and thereby require an adequate response across supervisory mandates. And this includes financial stability macroprudential objectives, so assessing and mitigating possible emerging systemic risks stemming from these trends. Also financial soundness and microprudential objectives, so fostering prudent risk governance, culture, as insurers adapt their strategies and business models in response to these trends, and also market conduct and consumer protection objectives designed to elevate the attention and priority given by both by industry and by insurance supervisors to consumers' interests and treating customers fairly in the face of these trends. And these trends, of course, are also highly relevant, particularly to the third strategic theme, and to the objective of fostering financial inclusion and promoting market development. And to, looking at our strategic themes, to mention again that we do believe that the IAS is uniquely placed to provide a global supervisory perspective on these strategic themes. These are trends which are global in nature and which are cross-cutting in nature. I think also, as Shigeru mentioned, the strategic themes are not necessarily a radical shift in emphasis, but rather, an evolution of the themes that the IAS has been currently focusing on. Also to mention that we've identified 3 clearly, but we will not focus on these themes to the exclusion of other themes that might warrant supervisory attention or other issues that may arise during the course of the next 5 years. But these 3 are ones that we will give particular attention to. And the first of these themes is strengthening the supervisory response to climate change. And I think it's no surprise that this remains a priority topic. Insurers are exposed to both transition and physical risks through their underwriting and investment activities, but insurers can also be key agents in identifying, mitigating, and managing climate risks, and thereby contributing to a sustainable transition to a net zero economy and to strengthen societal resilience to climate change impacts. And recently, as you know, I think it's fair to say that the IAS has undertaken pioneering work among standard-setting bodies on climate change, spanning financial stability risk assessment, developing supervisory guidance, and promoting supervisory capacity. For instance, we have integrated climate data elements into our GME, so they're now a regular feature. We have continued to develop guidance on supervisory practices by refining and updating our ICP guidance, our supporting materials, and we've also been active in capacity building. And the IAIS has also been working closely with other international organizations and standard setting bodies in this area, including the Basel Committee, the Network for Greening the Financial System, and the FSB, to ensure a coordinated response across financial sectors. Going forward, we will now deepen our work program on climate change. And given the unique role of the insurance sector in the financial ecosystem, we will aim to be a leader in understanding the financial impact of climate change physical risks, including by developing metrics and tools and exploring the role of insurance in climate change adaptation and risk mitigation. At the same time, during this period, we'll also begin to consider wider environmental and sustainability risks to the extent that these are relevant for insurance supervision. Our efforts on climate change will be supported through work across all of our core objectives, including data collection, metrics and analysis, standard setting, sharing good supervisory practices, facilitating supervisory capacity building, and also monitoring progress made in implementation of best practices. The second theme is adapting to digital innovation and cyber risks. And I think we all know digital innovation presents significant opportunities for financial inclusion, for policyholder value. But as supervisors, we're also alert to the fact that it poses specific conduct and prudential risks. And inherently linked, technological change and innovation have dramatically increased operational resilience risks, notably in cyber, IT outsourcing, and business continuity. And of course, insurers are not only exposed to cyber risk through their operations, but are also active takers on of cyber risk through their cyber underwriting activities. Over the past 5 years, we've been very active in sharing supervisory practices and providing a platform for exchange of experiences and insights related to digital innovation, including through our FinTech Forum. And on cyber risk, we've analyzed the financial stability implications of cyber risk through the 2023 special edition of our Global Insurance Market Report. Now, going forward, we will continue to firstly support supervisors in understanding the potential opportunities and risks of existing and emerging technologies adopted in the insurance sector, particularly, of course, artificial intelligence. And secondly, we will promote convergence in supervisory practices, in other words, helping to reduce market fragmentation, and support supervisors to effectively adapt to digital innovation developments and fulfill their supervisory mandates, including an emphasis on the appropriate use of SupTech. The work will focus on risks to consumers, to insurers, and to the insurance sector at large. And this reflects the interconnected nature of this theme with the different pillars of the IAIS's work and allows for holistic assessments and coordination among relevant IAIS groups in responding to these developments. The final theme, and I think particularly noteworthy, is supporting insurance to serve its societal purpose of building resilience. Now, it's certainly to some degree a shift of emphasis in the IAIS out of maybe a core focus to understanding that supervisors have a role to play in bringing about broader societal resilience. But of course, many of the elements of the theme build on our existing work. So to talk a little bit about that, I'll also touch on our access and our protection gaps work. But why have we put this strategic theme as a key priority, one of the top 3 priorities for the IAIS? Well, it's because at its essence, the sense is that insurance exists essentially to build societal resilience, and that for insurance to deliver on this purpose, especially for vulnerable elements of society, requires inclusive insurance markets characterized by product design, distribution, and servicing which meets consumers' needs, and addressing protection gaps. And as we've stated clearly recently, insurance supervisors can and must play an important role in supporting and shepherding insurance to deliver on this societal purpose. I talked about the work that we've already done that links to this theme. So, of course, the topic of promoting access to and affordability of insurance has been a priority topic for the IAIS since the adoption of our access agenda in 2006. And a key milestone of that was the establishment of the Access to Insurance Initiative, the A2II, in collaboration with development partners in 2009. Under the next strategic plan, we will continue to advance our financial inclusion and fair treatment of customers agendas. Affordability and access to insurance that provides value to consumers is relevant across the full range of our supervisory objectives. And then, of course, more recently, in recent years, the IAIS has turned its attention to the role that supervisors can play in addressing protection gaps, collaborating with partners to develop supporting materials focused on, firstly, pandemic, and then secondly, natural catastrophe protection gaps. And going forward, we will focus on concrete actions to support insurance supervisors' efforts in addressing protection gaps. We'll look to providing guidance and tools for supervisors to use in line with their mandates. And the focus will range from data collection and analysis, including tools and practices to quantify and assess protection gaps, and on capacity building and sharing good practices related to supervisory responses to protection gaps. We will also be undertaking our own analysis of the possible financial stability implications of natural catastrophe protection gaps, which will be our next GMAR special topic. I also want to talk about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations, which we put out clear statements on the importance both internally within insurers' workplaces and in their approach to serving the consumer population as an enabler of the insurance industry to better meeting actual consumer needs, preventing discriminatory practices, and being more prudentially sound. You'll see that we've no longer included DE&I as a distinct strategic theme, but I want to stress that it remains a very important focus. In fact, we will seek to ensure that we embed it across our work and continue to consider DEI issues as they affect supervisors. And moreover, we will walk the talk. We will more closely embed DE&I into our own operations. Which is a good segue to the last key element, which is our operational priorities. This is an area where we've made great strides in recent years to improve how we operate, and examples include professionalizing our communications and our stakeholder engagement, and improving our processes and risk management. But we're also committed to continuous improvement in how we operate, and to maximize our effectiveness in fulfilling our core objectives and addressing the strategic themes outlined in this plan. We've also committed to a number of operational priorities, which I'll now outline. So the first operational priority speaks to deriving strength from our differences. The IAIS, as I've already mentioned, has been focused on our approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion at the association as an enabler of how we deliver better outcomes, including by articulating the IAIS's vision for DE&I, formalizing the commitment to DE&I within our relevant policies and processes, and introducing initiatives that aim to foster inclusion of members. In the period ahead, we aim to build on this platform through various initiatives designed to ensure we draw on the diversity of perspectives of our membership and our stakeholders. Secondly, we will operate sustainably and with sensitivity to our environmental impact. And the IAIS first introduced an environmental policy in 2020 to promote sustainable behaviors and reduce the overall carbon footprint of the association. Since 2022, we've also reported annually on progress towards the reduction targets. In the next 5-year period, we will continue to follow the principles outlined in our environmental policy to reduce travel where appropriate and expand on our external reporting of progress. Our third priority speaks to enhanced member and stakeholder engagement. And last year, as you all saw, we refreshed our stakeholder engagement and consultation policy to ensure we engage with a diverse range of stakeholders. Building on this initiative, in the period ahead, we aim to firstly make it easier for members and stakeholders to be informed about and follow our work in progress. Secondly, support better understanding of the IAIS's outcomes and work products. Thirdly, strengthen the use of our member regional groups and their regional coordinators to facilitate two-way engagement between members and the IAIS. And lastly, continue to expand the range of stakeholders from whom we receive input to inform our work, including by engaging at the early stage of projects and by considering expansion of the IAIS's stakeholder network in line with our strategic themes. And then lastly, we will continue to pursue operational efficiencies. In the past few years, the IAIS has made significant strides in implementing efficiencies and robust processes to support our work, and we plan to build on progress and keep improving, including by maximizing the effectiveness and efficiency of our meeting cycles, leveraging the use of technology, and leveraging opportunities for joint work with the IAIS's implementation partners and other standard-setting bodies to maximize our impact. So we covered a lot in this presentation. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, for joining us for the webinar, and for listening to our vision for the future direction of the IAIS. As you're now aware, the association will have no shortage of challenging objectives over the period ahead, but it's also a very exciting time. And we very much look forward to collaborating with all of you to realize what is an ambitious but important agenda for the next 5-year period. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan, for this presentation, and a lot to cover. And I can imagine there might be some questions or perhaps initial reactions from people in the audience. So as a reminder, feel free to raise your hand. We will be able to unmute you, and you can ask your question verbally, or otherwise you may also send a message in the chat function. So I do actually see already some raised hands. I think, Jonathan, you can see them as well. So maybe we would take them one by one. So I would ask Zoe if you can unmute Robert New, and then we can hear from him what he might have to say. Robert, you are unmuted now.
Good day, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the thoughtful presentation, very comprehensive, and it sounds like you have taken on board a lot of views, and we appreciate the update. I simply would ask, just to make sure I understood some of the earlier presentation from Shigeru, in terms of the next steps. It sounds like you'll be focusing on this at the global seminar, and are there potential opportunities to continue to shape this, or is it pretty fully baked at this point? That wasn't completely clear to me. Just want to be sure that if we can continue to engage with members, that we do so. And just would also mention that I know you indicated that you're working on relationships with other external groups in a similar vein, and we too are following work of other groups like the OECD and the G7, B7, G20, B20, that type of thing. I know there's a lot of developments on those fronts that we hope to be consistent with and to work with you on. So wanted to just mention that, and thanks again for the update. Just wanted to be clear in how we report this to members and circle back to you. So thanks.
Yes, so very happy to take that quickly and provide some more clarity on the process. So first thing to point out, just to reiterate what is on the slide there, that well, firstly, we obviously welcome any initial thoughts in this live webinar, but also we would welcome any follow-up written comments by the 2nd of May to the address there on the screen. So if there's anything as you go through the slides, listen to the presentations again, where you have specific comments, feel free to send those through in writing. Those will also then feed into the finalization of the plan. And then, of course, we will take all of that into account ahead of finalizing the plan for the June meetings. And then we will be able to share more about the final plan during the virtual global seminar, which is scheduled for July. Hannah, I know you and Alistair have been working closely on the process, so if there's anything you want to add.
No, nothing to add on that, Jonathan. So indeed, we do welcome any written comments in next week, by next week Thursday, and we will use that then to further make any refinements that might be warranted based on your suggestions or feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, so I also see some comments coming in the chat function, but I would propose maybe we first go to the next speaker. I see Bernie Burman has also raised his hand, so you are now unmuted. So please go ahead. Oh, yes, you should now be unmuted. So please, can you try again? Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation and for your efforts. I have two questions. The first is, what are the implications of the new strategic plan for the organizational structure of the IAIS? Do you anticipate creating or modifying any of the committee, working group, and forum structures? Do you anticipate converting any of the forums into working groups with concrete deliverables? Do you anticipate creating additional working groups to address the many aspects of market supervision to create more balance with the resources devoted to financial supervision? So that was question one.
Okay, so happy to take question one, and but it will be a somewhat short answer, because the answer is that I think all of those questions around governance and structure of our committees, our working groups, etc., really will speak to the operationalization of our next 5-year strategic plan. So how do we govern and organize the work and that we have to do on the objectives and strategic themes in the plan? Now, this is work that has commenced but not yet finalized. This is, now in fact become the sort of key focus of our task force, and this work will take place and continue over the next few months. We'll have further discussions on this when we meet in June, have our committee meetings in June in Basel. And then ultimately, this will feed into our September meetings, which have traditionally been what we term our EXCO retreat, where we consider strategic issues and our work program for the following year, which we call our roadmap. So between now and the end of the year, particularly in September, we will be looking to finalize our roadmap for 2025 to 2026. And it's the roadmap which will really talk to the operationalization of this strategic plan, particularly in the first 2 years of the 5-year strategic plan period. And as part of those discussions that we will be discussing whether there are aspects of the strategic plan which would suggest a change in any of our governance structures or our working group structures and how we organize our work. So short answer that there's an ongoing process on that, but we'll be able to share more later in the year.
Thank you. Question 2. What is your evaluation of consumer stakeholder engagement in the last year or two? And what contributions from consumer stakeholders have you incorporated into the draft strategic plan?
Yeah, I mean, I have certainly a perception, but I'm glad it's also seems to be backed up by the feedback that we have received from our engagement with consumer bodies, which is that the efforts that we've put in place in recent years, particularly over the last year, to have a more frequent and structured engagement with consumer bodies has been incredibly helpful. I think we now have a good way to have engagement at the more detailed level, at the technical level, which then feeds up to structured discussions at our leadership, amongst our leadership teams. And I think, you know, the input that we've got from that, together with the input that Hannah's mentioned from our actual survey and outreach mechanisms that we put in place for our strategic plan, has all come together to inform the discussions of our strategic plan task force. I mean, what I would I think particularly emphasize is that we have been very careful, and when you see the sort of text of the final plan, you will see in the strategic plan that we have taken pains to emphasize that that our core objectives and our strategic themes cut across all supervisory mandate issues. So I think what we are trying to emphasize is that market conduct issues are not, something, a small part of what we do that is parked off to the side. We will consider market conduct and consumer issues in everything that we do, and to make sure that we have a very well integrated and balanced focus on conduct and consumer issues over the next 5 years.
Thanks very much.
So the next one I have on the list is Dave Snyder. So Dave, we have unmuted you now. So David, so you can.
Good afternoon, and good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I want to thank you very much for this session and for the increasing engagement with stakeholders that IAIS has been quite seriously engaged in over the last several years. So thank you for all of that. My question and comment goes to consideration of supervision which encourages and supports a competitive and innovative insurance market. that consumers are best served by a market where there are many choices and many providers? And will, in the context of each of these issues, the three themes, will you be engaging with the industry to determine not just what the industry should not be doing, but rather what can supervisors do to encourage a competitive and innovative insurance market? That's question number one. And comment number two, engagement between stakeholders and the working groups is extremely valuable. And I know that there's been more of that recently than had been in the past, and would just encourage further discussions with roundtables and other ways to have a free-flowing dialogue on priorities and specifics. So going back really to the first question, it seems critical that the role of supervisors is not just to prevent bad things from happening, but creating an environment that encourages the growth of a private insurance market. And I just wanted some reassurance that that will continue to be a key part as you work on all the themes that you mentioned. And again, thank you so much for this session and for all that you do each and every day.
So happy to kick off. I should flag I've got the management team of the Secretariat online as well. So I think you all know, in addition to Hannah, also Deputy Secretary General Roman Passero, and also our Head of Implementation, Connor. I'll kick off, and they may want to add. I mean, I think first to point out that sort of market competitiveness is not a particular focus of the IAIS. It's not a common supervisory objective, so it's not something that we've specified as an objective in how we've phrased our core objectives and our strategic themes. But of course, it could very well be relevant to some of our strategic themes. So, for instance, on strategic theme 2 on technological development, innovation and responsible and value-adding innovation is a key part of that, but also strategic theme 3 around societal purpose. So issues like inclusion, protection gaps. I think there is very much a recognition that innovation, which is driven by creating an enabling environment, is important to achieving those strategic objectives. But others might want to add, although noting I think that we have 5 minutes left, so we might want to try to cover some other questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I suggest that perhaps indeed we moved maybe to the next part, but I do wish to highlight as well that for us also the engagement throughout the process of developing new materials already, also before and after the formal consultation periods, has also really proven to be very valuable. So we will definitely continue that and see if there are ways to even enhance that further going forward. So Marianne, perhaps you want to go next. We can unmute you now, and then you should be able to speak. If you are trying to speak, then I cannot hear you at the moment. We can't hear you just yet. So perhaps I go to a question that we received in the chat box, and in the meantime, you may try to look at your audio settings, if that's okay for you, Marianne. So one question in the chat was I think a clarifying question around the plans for the implementation assessment. So it was related to the ComFrame implementation assessment and the ICS assessment framework. if we could clarify if we are looking at the implementation assessment at a jurisdiction, so at a country level, or are we looking at an individual company level, so per IAIG?
So in interest of time, I'll answer it very quickly, which is it is at the jurisdictional level.
All right, ticked off that box. The next question was on how we will be approaching our work on insurance protection gaps and the impact on financial stability. So perhaps I take that question actually, because we have agreed to develop the next GMAR special topic edition on this topic next year. And as we typically do with special topic editions of our Global Insurance Market Report, is we use this as an opportunity to do further exploratory work on an issue that hasn't yet been developed so thoroughly in terms of data collection and data analysis. So we typically use, and as we will do this time as well, we use our mechanisms of our global monitoring exercise and of our annual data collections to try and collect data and information, so qualitative data, but also quantitative data on these issues, and use that to then develop an exploratory paper which would discuss how insurance protection gaps can impact financial stability. And we will also be looking at leveraging our existing connections with other partners and international organizations, as they are also doing various works in this area. So that's something that will be taking place over the course of next year. So with that, I suppose maybe we can try one more time.
Yeah. Do we have Marianne back?
Yeah, we can try one more time, Marianne, if you could try to speak now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Perfect. Great. I was speaking alone, so good that it works now. So thank you for your presentation and this opportunity to exchange. I just wanted to note that GIFIA supports the key objective that you have shared with us today. And we also support the commitment that I think was stated on slide 25. So to reduce the burden for members and stakeholders participating in AIS processes. We just note that this seemed to refer only to reducing the burden of stakeholders in commenting on AIS material. So just on this point, I have a bit more of a comment than an actual question. But we just wanted to note that, for GIFIA, it's important to reduce the burden of companies having to report. So as mentioned in our response to the July consultation on the new strategic plan, given the very significant extent of, and the burden of existing regulations across the world, GIFIA would appreciate an explicit recognition that the AIS will first try to leverage what already exists without developing new standards. So in that sense, we would also maybe appreciate a commitment to minimizing the cost and impacts to insurers. So this was the only point I wanted to raise. Thanks.
Very good. And maybe, Roman, you want to say a few things around on the data side?
Yeah, so that has always been a very important principle that has guided us throughout the different data collection exercise that we have done to ensure that we build on available information or that we minimize the burden in terms of the data collection. That's certainly something that has been very high in our discussions in how to flesh out the objective of, for instance, the continuation of our risk monitoring. So we have also had the opportunity, of course, to discuss with the groups participating to our exercise. We've been presenting what we do and getting some suggestions. So that's certainly something that we are going to continue to do. We also very much are engaging with our members also in this discussion to see how we can build or collect information using regulatory reporting or market-wide information, as we have been doing the GME through the sector-wide monitoring. So yes, we are continuing to do this work. Of course, at the same time, I think the work that we have been doing in terms of risk monitoring is something that has been, I've seen that ranked very high also by stakeholders and by groups. I think it has provided a very good basis for our dialogue and our engagement with the stakeholders and the industry. So I think this is also something that has been very much helpful in shaping our priorities. So we need to find the right balance between the benefits of what we collect and of course the cost in terms of resources. But yes, I can certainly ensure that this is a very very important guiding principle in what we do, and that's going to continue to be the case.
Thanks, Romain, for that. And I do not see any further questions at the moment. And I also realize we are already a little bit over the scheduled time for today. So thank you again for joining today, for your questions, your comments, and thank you in advance for any written comments that you may want to share with us in the coming week. So unless, Jonathan, you have any final remarks, I would say thank you very much. Have a very good day ahead of you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to an exciting 5 years ahead.